we're having a look at the upcoming release of Shout Factory's Raising Cain, to be released on Blu-ray September 13th, 2016. Got this early copy available, and I've already had a watch of it. I actually watched it last night. Raising Cain was a movie I haven't seen in a while. I believe I originally watched it. It might have even been on pay TV when it was during its free weekend. I always really liked this movie. And it's nice to see that Shout Factory has re-released it. Again, this is going to be coming out September 13th, 2016. The main character, Carter Nix, played by John Lithgow. I'm sure lots of people remember John Lithgow. He's been in movies like Interstellar, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. He's also been Third Rock from the Sun, if everybody remembers that zany movie. He also was in one of my favorite movies, comedies in the 80s, was Harry and the Hendersons. Also a great movie. But this has been re-released now on Blu-ray. This is the collector's edition, starring John Lithgow, as mentioned, and Lolita Davidovich, or Davidovich. The front of the box has the new art style for the Raising Cain box art, and it says, "I am me, I am him." And I do like how it's got that big strip down the side there where you've got the regular Carter face, and then you've got Cain, the very evil Cain on the side. Now, of course, this review will have a little bit of a spoiler to it, so if you haven't seen the movie, probably go check the movie first and then come back to this review. But the outer sleeve, we can just take that off, and the same artwork is featured and presented on the inside case. But what Shout Factory does, and I love that they do this, you open up the case, and if you want the original artwork, you can flip around the sleeve, and you've got how it originally would have looked on DVD or VHS back in the day. It says, "When Jenny cheated on her husband, he didn't just leave, he split." Which I think is a good tagline for the movie itself. Now, the movie comes in two formats, and this is something I actually want to talk about. But if I could basically sum it up with a summary, a big summary overview of what the movie is about. It's about this gentleman, again, some spoilers, Carter Nix, plays a loving husband to a woman that already has a daughter, and he seems like the perfect man, the perfect husband, really down to earth, really gentle, really kind. Secretly, though, he has a split personality. And through the process of the movie, you see Nix, Carter, you see him unraveling himself from being a more sane, composed, and strong individual to dismantling himself into a more unstable mix of himself, Carter, and of course, there's going to be other characters in there as well. There's one other character that pops up closer near the end of the movie itself. But what kind of spirals out of control for him is that his wife, Jenny, the woman that he has now fallen in love with, has started cheating on him with a former love of hers. When she was a doctor, she had this patient and fell in love with him while looking after his daughter. The movie itself, actually, you know what? Let's talk about the features available in this release, and then I'll kind of just give you my summary of what I thought of the movie itself. Let's do a quick read up on the back. When Jenny cheated on her husband, again, he didn't just leave, he split. From the master of suspense, Brian De Palma, body double, Scarface Dressed to Kill, comes a stylish psychological thriller that will keep you on the edge of your seat until the final frame. Carter Nix, John Lithgow, Interstellar, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, is a respected psychologist, a loving husband, and devoted father who decides to take a year off to help raise his daughter. Carter's wife, Jenny, is pleased to have her intensive husband at home. At first, when Carter shows obsessive behavior towards their daughter, Jenny becomes concerned and complicate matters. Jenny's old flame re-enters her life. Bum, bum, bum. But nothing can prepare her for the emergence of Carter's multiple personalities and a fiendish plot to recreate the infamous experiments of his own deranged father. Feature-wise, you have Disc 1, which has the theatrical version of the movie, new interviews with actors John Lithgow, Stephen Bow, Greg Henry, Tom Bauer, Mel Harris, and editor Paul Hirsch. It also features the original theatrical trailer. Disc 2, on the other hand, has a never-before-seen director's cut of the film featuring scenes reordered as originally intended. New Changing Cain, Brian De Palma's cult classic, restored. The movie itself was originally released in 1992. Running time is 91 minutes. Okay, so that's basically in a nutshell Raising Cain. Now, how do I feel about the movie itself? Well, I'm of two minds, which is funny enough because we are reviewing and looking at Raising Cain. I am almost as split as Carter Nix is himself. In one end of it, you have the theatrical version of the film. On the other hand, you have the never-before-seen director's cut of the film. Having already watched the original theatrical film, I like it. It paces itself very well, like a standard 90s thriller. You can watch Raising Cain, and it has a very, not formulaic, but it has a very, you can watch it and you know it's a 90s thriller. It just has that kind of pacing to it. The way it's presented, it looks like a 90s thriller. And I think the movie works very well as the original theatrical cut. But apparently that's not the cut that the director wanted to have. No, in fact, what he wanted to have is what actually gets delivered to us via Disc 2, the never-before-seen director's cut of the film. And I have to honestly say that the director's cut does not work for me one bit. The original theatrical cut, and I know Brian De Palma's style of movie presentation is that he kind of likes to throw the viewers for a loop. He doesn't want to have the exact same, again, formulaic flow of a movie, that he does like to change it up a little bit. The downside, though, is the theatrical version of the movie flows very well. You can follow it from start to finish. It doesn't feel like it gets off, it veers off the road at any given point. I did, however, though, watch the director's cut of the film last night, and not only is the timeline of events completely drastically different, but it throws off the flow of the movie. Just when you think you're actually following along and you know exactly what's happening, the director's cut throws you completely in a different loop without explaining what it was going to be doing. So, for example, if you've seen the theatrical cut starts with Carter being in the park looking for his wife. And then through the process of that, he finds out that his wife has been cheating on him. The director's cut, however, starts in a completely different place. It starts later into the movie, and then it uses itself to flash back to previous scenes, explaining what would have led up to that point. The downside, though, is that at one given point, and again, there might be some spoilers in this review, at one point, you think Carter has suffocated his wife with a pillow, only then to find out a few minutes later that she's walking around and talking to him. And you start scratching your head as to why that scene, it doesn't make any sense. Is his wife not dead? And then you find out later, not only by like 5 minutes, 10 minutes down the road, 15 minutes down the road, you find out, oh, wait a minute, everything we're now watching is a flashback of what has already happened. And I found that by watching the director's cut, I've lost a little bit of love for this movie that I originally had while watching it in the theatrical version of the film. One thing I could suggest to any person who hasn't had a chance to watch Raising Cain, when you do eventually pick up this movie, watch the theatrical cut first. Don't watch the director's cut. The theatrical cut, I think, will be a good starting point because the theatrical cut will kind of give you a proper flowing movie. If you want to then go and jump right to the director's cut, if the director's cut doesn't quite make sense to you, at least you know what the original movie was that came to theaters, what it was originally supposed to be, or originally what it was when it was released in theaters. Then the director's cut might make a little bit more sense. But I would probably not suggest watching the director's cut first, just because it doesn't flow at all. It jumps all over the place, and I really had a tough time following what Brian De Palma had intended when he wanted to originally make the movie. Because the director's cut is how he originally wanted to make the movie, and he ended up just bailing. Not bailing, so to speak, but he did eventually go back, and under pressures of the studios, he gave us a theatrical version, which he was not happy with. To be honest though, the theatrical version works a lot better than the director's cut. Watch the theatrical first, then watch the director's cut. So at least if the director's cut doesn't make as much sense to you, you already know how the movie is going to end, or you already know things that are going to happen in the movie that you could kind of remember in your mind. Okay, well, they're doing this in the movie, but I know in the theatrical it ends up getting to this point that at least this makes sense. Don't watch this on its own though. It will confuse you like, well, I was confused watching it because I couldn't quite place where scenes were happening. They were just jumping all over the place. For your video transfer, for this being a 90s movie, I think Shout Factory has done a pretty good job of giving it not a fresh coat of paint, because the picture is not that much different. It does look a lot clearer. I think the grain and the picture quality as a whole looks a lot better, but it doesn't come across like high def, which I find a lot of 90s movies, when they re-release these on Blu-ray, when you get any 90s movies re-released on Blu-ray, the quality of the film really isn't that much different. It's when you start seeing like 80s movies. I think 80s movies seem to transfer a lot better from what I've seen to a Blu-ray format. Maybe because you can see more drastic differences, where 90s movies being a more recent movie, you don't see as much of the video quality enhancements that you would with an older movie. But still very happy that Shout Factory has released this, Raising Cain, on Blu-ray finally. Just again, a word of wise, watch the theatrical first, then watch the director's cut. If you watch the director's cut first, you might be a little bit lost. At any rate, today's Blu-ray spot, we were having a look at the Shout Factory Scream Factory. This was Raising Cain Collector's Edition, which will be on Blu-ray on September 13th, 2016. Stay tuned, guys. Spot's going to have more Blu-ray spots heading your way. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.